Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The suitcase was gone, the scent of her perfume still clinging to the hallway like it was mocking me. There was a half-eaten granola bar on the counter and a coffee mug with her lipstick print still fresh. Normal. Mundane. Except this time, she packed lingerie she hadn't worn in over a year. The same ones she once told me were too fancy for just us. She sent the text right after she shut the car door. Quick trip with the girls, nothing big. Don't overthink it, babe. I love you. Cool. Fine. Whatever. But here's the problem, I do overthink. Constantly. Obsessively. And not because I want to ruin things, but because, deep down, I feel when something's off. And something was off. It wasn't the trip itself. She'd done that kind of thing before. It was the smiley she added at the end, one she never used. The kind of emoji she once said she only dropped when talking to someone who needs managing. And I guess that's what I'd become. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, right up until her friend Maeve accidentally posted a story on Instagram, a boomerang of her at brunch. In town, not in the mountains, not at a spa, just 10 minutes away, sipping mimosas in a dress I saw in our laundry 2 days ago. That's when the math stopped mathing. I messaged Maeve. No answer. I messaged Elise. Nothing. Third try, I texted Kat and said, "Hope you're all enjoying the trip." She replied, "What trip?" Now, I'm not a detective. I'm a graphic designer who sometimes cries over animal rescue videos. I don't have spy tools or burner phones. But I do have eyes. And anxiety. And when those two team up, nothing slips past them. So I started digging. Not through her phone. She took it. But through the dust she thought she left behind. Email confirmations in the trash folder. Uber receipts. One from Friday night. Dropped off at a hotel downtown. Not a cabin. Not a girlfriend's house. A hotel. 5 stars. Known for its couple's rooftop spa. And then the final piece. A photo posted by a friend of a friend. Background blurred, but not enough. There she was. My wife. Laughing. Wine in hand. Sitting across from a man with dark hair, his hand mid-reach for hers. Her wedding ring? Missing. And yet, I still sat on the floor and stared at that image like maybe it would change. Maybe if I looked long enough, it would turn into someone else. But no, it was her. So I did something I never imagined I would. I called her friends. The ones she was supposedly with. Told them everything. And instead of covering for her, they said, "We've had enough too." Monday came. And we waited. Me. Her 3 best friends. At my house. Drinking coffee. Sitting in silence. Until her key turned in the lock. And I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "So, how was the trip with him?" She froze in the doorway. Keys still dangling from her hand. Mouth slightly open. Eyes darting between me and her 3 friends seated in our kitchen like a jury that had already reached its verdict. She blinked once. Then again. And I swear, for a split second, she looked like she might just turn and run. Instead, she stepped in and tried to play it cool. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, her voice higher than usual. Too casual, too forced. The kind of tone someone uses when they know they're caught, but haven't figured out which part of the lie you've uncovered yet. Elise spoke first. Calmly. Too calmly. "You said we all bailed on the trip." Maeve added. "And told me Kat was having a breakdown and couldn't go. And told me that they were too busy planning bachelorette stuff for my cousin." Kat snapped. A cousin I've never met, by the way. My wife, Farron, looked like her brain short-circuited. Her jaw clenched, and she tried to smile. That tight, panicked smile that once got her out of speeding tickets and late rent notices. But not this time. I didn't want to make anyone feel guilty, she stammered. It was just supposed to be a solo thing, you know? For my mental health. I leaned forward. A solo thing at a couple's spa? Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Were you spying on me?" "No," I said. "You left your lies lying around like confetti. I just picked them up." Silence. You could hear the refrigerator hum. She looked at her friends, then back at me. "This is a trap. You're humiliating me in my own home." That part broke me a little. Her home? I'd been the one scrubbing floors at 1 a.m., fixing the leaking sink she never reported, working double shifts to make sure we never defaulted on the mortgage she said she'd split. But sure, now it was her home. Suddenly, once her reality cracked. "No," I said quietly. "This is the first time you're seeing yourself through someone else's eyes." She laughed, bitterly. "You're all ganging up on me. This is pathetic." Kat stood up. What's pathetic is lying to every single person who ever cared about you so you could sneak off with a guy who makes TikToks in gym mirrors. That's when Farron's composure really crumbled. Her face twisted. The mask she wore so confidently for years, the poised, untouchable version of herself, slipped entirely. For a moment, I saw someone else. Someone cornered. Someone scared. But not sorry. She looked me dead in the eyes and hissed, "You don't know anything about me." And maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I only knew the curated version she fed me between vacations and business dinners. The version who said, "I love you," while texting someone else under the table. The version who kissed me goodbye just 4 days earlier like she wasn't leaving behind a man she never planned to return to. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask why I wasn't enough. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up and said, "You're right. I don't know you anymore. But now they don't either." Then I handed her a manila envelope. Inside was everything I'd printed from her cloud, photos, receipts, and one last page. A copy of the hotel's guest registry with her signature and a man's name beneath it. "His name's Jackson," I said quietly. "You told me he was your coworker's cousin. Guess he got promoted." Her hand trembled. I walked out before she could speak, left her standing there. Because I knew if I stayed, I'd beg her to say it wasn't true. And I wasn't going to give her that power again. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't storm out or yell some cinematic one-liner over my shoulder. No drama. Just the quiet click of a lock behind me. But my heart was anything but quiet. It was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape too. I didn't know where I was going. My feet just moved. Past the mailbox, down the street, away from the smell of her perfume still clinging to my shirt. I made it 3 blocks before I heard her voice. "Lyle, wait." Of course she followed me. It was her pattern. Create a mess, then chase just far enough to pretend to clean it up. I kept walking. "Lyle, please," she said again, louder this time. I didn't stop until I hit the park. The one we used to walk through after late dinners. The one where she once said, "I want us to grow old together." What a joke. She caught up, panting, heels in hand. "You can't just walk away like that." I turned to her, slowly. "Funny. That's exactly what you did 4 days ago." She looked like she wanted to cry, but nothing came. She was always better at looking hurt than actually being hurt. Still, she went for it. "I messed up, okay? I needed space. And Jackson, he was just someone to talk to." I let out a laugh. It was short, sharp, and bitter. "You booked a hotel with him to talk? How loud were those conversations that you needed soundproof walls and blackout curtains?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't be petty." "Petty? I just sat at a table with your best friends and watched them realize the person they trusted doesn't exist." "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. That line, that pathetic, overused line, as if betrayal has a tidy boundary, as if she only dipped her toes into the lie but somehow slipped and fell face first. "You didn't just cheat on me, Farron," I said, voice cracking despite everything. "You humiliated me, lied to me, turned our marriage into your personal escape room." She crossed her arms. "You were never present, Lyle. Always anxious. Always second-guessing everything. I needed someone who made me feel alive." "And Jackson, what is he? Your defibrillator?" That one stung. I could tell by the way she looked down at the grass, pretending it had answers. But she didn't deny it. Not once. Not even a fake excuse. That's what hurt the most. The lack of fight. The lack of remorse. "I wanted to tell you," she muttered. "When?" I asked. "Before or after the next trip?" She stepped closer. "I'm sorry." I stepped back. "No. You're sorry you got caught." The wind blew hard then, rustling the leaves around our feet like nature itself was tired of her excuses. I looked at her for the last time the way I used to, with hope. But it was gone now. The image of her in that hotel, the fake smile, the removed wedding ring, that had killed whatever was left. She reached out. "Can we talk? Please. Just talk." "No," I said, steady now. "You had 4 days in another man's bed to do your talking. I'm done listening." And with that, I turned around and walked toward the other side of the park. I didn't look back. Not even when I heard her sob. Not even when she called my name again. Not even when she said, "I still love you." Because love isn't what you say when you've ruined someone. It's what you protect before you ruin them. And she didn't protect me at all. I spent that night in my car, parked in the lot behind my office. I didn't go to a friend's. Didn't check into a motel. I couldn't stomach the thought of explaining it to anyone yet. The silence of the empty building, the glow from the street lamp outside, and the hum of the engine, those became my only company. And honestly, it felt more honest than anything I'd felt in our home in years. Around 3 a.m., I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 9 from Farron. The rest were a cocktail of messages from her friends, her sister, and one from her mom that just said, "Please talk to her." I didn't respond. I stared at my wallpaper instead. It was a photo from last fall, us standing by a lake, fake laughing for the camera. She had her arm around me, but now I couldn't remember how that even felt. By morning, I knew I couldn't hide forever. I needed clothes, my charger, my laptop. I just didn't expect her to still be there. When I walked through the door, I was hit with the smell of bacon and pancakes. At first, I thought maybe I'd gone crazy. But no, there she was. In the kitchen, wearing one of my old shirts like it still meant something, flipping pancakes like we weren't shattered. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice rough from a night of no sleep. She turned, hopeful. "I thought we could talk." "Over breakfast?" I asked. "Did you forget the part where you blew up our life 4 days ago?" She looked hurt, like I was the one being cruel. "Lyle, I'm trying. I messed up, but I want to fix this." I walked past her, grabbed my laptop off the counter, and opened the hall closet. She followed me, step for step, arms crossed like she was preparing for war. "I didn't sleep with him," she blurted. I stopped, not because I believed her, but because the lie felt so rehearsed it made me nauseous. "Oh, so what was it?" I asked. "A sensual game of Uno at a hotel suite with mood lighting?" "It wasn't like that," she snapped. "We just talked. He made me feel seen." There it was again. That stupid phrase. Seen. As if I'd been walking around with my eyes closed. As if I hadn't spent every birthday, every anniversary, every quiet Sunday trying to make her feel like the most important person on earth. "Was he also the one who suggested you remove your wedding ring?" I asked. She hesitated. "I took it off because I was confused." "No," I said flatly. "You took it off because you were available. At least, you wanted to be." Her face fell. "Lyle, you weren't present. You haven't been yourself in months. I didn't know how to reach you." That line hit deeper than I expected. Because, in some twisted way, she wasn't entirely wrong. I had been distant. My anxiety got worse this year. I stopped planning things. Stopped initiating conversations. I was just trying to hold myself together, quietly, in the background, hoping she'd notice, hoping she'd care enough to ask. But she never did. She just assumed the silence meant freedom. "Do you know how many times I thought of asking for help?" I said. "Do you know how close I came to breaking down in front of you, hoping you'd catch me?" She softened. "Then why didn't you?" "Because you were already halfway out the door." The silence that followed was the loudest it had ever been between us. No more lies. No more excuses. Just the wreckage of what used to be love, scattered between us on the floor. "I want to go to therapy," she whispered. "Couples counseling. Anything." I nodded slowly. "That's great. But not for us." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not interested in rebuilding something that burned me alive." She opened her mouth to protest, but I walked away again. This time, I went into the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing, not because I had a grand plan, but because every second in that house felt like standing in a memory I didn't belong in anymore. As I zipped the bag, she stood in the doorway, eyes wet. "Where will you go?" I looked at her. For a second, I wanted to lie and say something dramatic. Instead, I said the truth. "Anywhere that doesn't smell like you." And I walked out. I didn't cry until I hit the freeway. It was like my body had held it all in until the tires left the neighborhood, and then it just let go without asking for permission. I turned up the music to drown myself out, but it didn't help. I could still hear her voice echoing in my head. Every "don't worry," every "I love you," every lie disguised as affection. The pain wasn't sharp. It was slow, heavy, like a wet blanket over my chest that wouldn't lift. I didn't have a destination, just a full tank of gas and the urge to be anywhere else. I ended up at a cheap extended stay hotel off the interstate. The carpet smelled like cigarette smoke. The lamp on the nightstand flickered when I plugged in my charger. But it was quiet, and nobody there had ever heard her name. That was enough for now. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark for a while. Just me, my thoughts, and the kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it exposes. I started replaying moments I hadn't thought about in years. The night I proposed to her in a freezing parking lot because the restaurant reservation fell through. The time she cried on the bathroom floor after her father died, and I sat with her all night, saying nothing, just holding her. The way she used to laugh at my awkwardness, like it was part of what made me lovable. It was crazy how none of that mattered now. All those memories were poisoned, tainted by what she did, but worse, by how easily she did it. No hesitation, no guilt. She didn't slip up once. She planned this. The lies weren't accidental. She built them. I barely slept. By morning, I had 24 unread messages. The usual suspects. Farron, her sister, even one from Jackson. That one stopped me cold. Didn't mean for things to blow up like that. Hope you're okay, man. Man. As if we were equals. As if we were on the same side of some twisted misunderstanding. I stared at his message for a long time. I wanted to reply something that would cut deep. Something cruel. But I just deleted it. I didn't want to waste rage on him. He didn't know me anything. She did. I turned my phone back off. Around noon, I got a knock at the door. My heart jumped before I even looked through the peephole. What if she'd found me? What if she came to beg again? But it wasn't her. It was Elise. I cracked the door open. How did you? You weren't answering anyone. Cat tracked your location using that dumb Find My app you forgot to turn off. I sighed. Of course she did. Elise stepped inside without asking. She looked tired, like none of them had slept since the ambush. She handed me a paper bag with some groceries and a fresh t-shirt from my favorite band. We figured you'd need some basics. And maybe a familiar face. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to hold it together. I feel like such an idiot. Elise didn't argue. Didn't say the usual stuff like, you're not. Instead, she sat beside me, folded her hands in her lap, and said, you're not the first one she's fooled. I turned to her, confused. What do you mean? She hesitated, chewing her bottom lip like she was deciding whether to keep the secret or set it free. Then she said, back in February, when she said she was in Seattle for a work conference, I found out she was in Miami, with someone else. That hit like a punch to the ribs. You knew? I suspected, but I didn't have proof. And I thought, maybe it wasn't my place. I stood up. Elise, you're her friend. I was yours too, she said softly. But I didn't act like it. And I'm sorry. I wanted to be angry at her. Yell maybe. But I couldn't. Because deep down I got it. People stay quiet when things get uncomfortable. That's how betrayal survives. It hides behind politeness. Behind, it's not my place. She pulled something from her pocket. It was a folded piece of paper. This is the name of the lawyer my cousin used. He's decent. And fast. I stared at the name. Divorce. The word still didn't feel real in my mouth, but it was getting louder in my mind. I don't know if I'm ready, I said. Elise looked at me like she already knew. You will be. Just don't wait until you're numb. She left after that, just as quietly as she came. And for the first time in days, I actually felt something resembling clarity. Not peace, not strength, but the beginning of something. Something that might, one day, resemble healing. 3 days passed. I stayed in that hotel room, watching the shadows shift across the walls like time was taunting me. I barely ate. I barely moved. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching some broken version of myself just exist. But on the 3rd day, I woke up differently. Maybe it was Elise's visit. Maybe it was the quiet beginning to turn into something unbearable. But I opened my eyes that morning and realized I couldn't stay there anymore. I had to face her, really face her. Not with a group of friends behind me or from behind a locked car door. Alone. Honest. One final time. I turned my phone on, half expecting it to explode. It didn't. A handful of missed calls. A few voicemails. One from her sister that simply said, I don't know what she was thinking, Lyle. None of us do. But most of the notifications were from her. And one stood out. A text I hadn't seen yet. Sent at 2:13 a.m. the night before. If you ever want to know the truth, I'll tell you. But I won't lie to make it easier to hear. I promise. It was the first thing she'd said that didn't sound like spin. So I called her. It rang once before she picked up. Lyle. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just listened to her breathing, uneven and sharp, like she hadn't believed I'd ever call again. I want to meet, I said finally. One time. Just you and me. She agreed instantly. We met at a neutral place, a coffee shop we used to go to before things got complicated. I sat down first, watching the door. She walked in wearing a hoodie and no makeup, like she was trying to dial herself down into something smaller, more forgivable. She sat across from me and said nothing, just looked. It took everything in me not to hate her on sight. I got straight to it. You said you'd tell the truth. She nodded slowly. I will. I leaned forward. Was he the only one? She hesitated, just enough to tell me the answer. No. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. How many? She swallowed. 3. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. I just counted slowly in my head. 3 people. 3 betrayals. 3 moments she chose to shatter me piece by piece while pretending everything was fine. The silence stretched too long. She started to squirm. It wasn't about love, Lyle, she said. It wasn't even about them. Then what was it about? I asked. She looked at me like I was asking a question too big to answer. I didn't feel anything anymore. Not about anything. I felt like I was suffocating in a life that was too quiet, too slow, too safe. So you burned it down? She flinched. I didn't mean to. That's the part that scares me the most, Farron. That you destroyed me without even meaning to. Like it was an accident. Like I was collateral. Her eyes welled up. I didn't think you'd break like this. I smiled bitterly. Because you thought I had nothing left to break. We sat there in silence, 2 ghosts surrounded by people living normal lives, drinking lattes and talking about weekend plans. She wiped her face and whispered, Do you hate me? I wish I did, I said honestly. It'd be easier. I want to fix it. You can't. She looked desperate now, reaching across the table like some final gesture would pull me back into the past. Please, Lyle, just give me something. A reason to try. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I gave her exactly that. I pulled out a folded sheet of paper from my coat pocket and placed it on the table. It was a signed separation agreement. I'm not filing it today, I said, but I wanted you to see it. To know it's real. To know I'm not waiting anymore. She stared at it like it was a death certificate. Then I stood up. I don't need closure from you, Farron. I just needed to look you in the eye and let you know I'm not yours to damage anymore. And I walked out. Not with anger. Not with sadness. With certainty. I didn't look back as I walked out of that cafe. I thought maybe it would hurt more, seeing her cry across the table like she used to love me. Like something had suddenly come alive in her that had been dead for months. But it didn't hurt. It felt hollow. Like watching someone mourn a house they burned down themselves. No matter how many tears she shed, the ashes were still warm. And I was done standing in the smoke. I drove without thinking again. I ended up at a lake just outside of town, one we'd once visited on a whim during a random weekend trip. We'd taken silly pictures there, skipped rocks, and talked about baby names we'd never use. I parked the car, got out, and walked toward the water, my shoes sinking a little in the damp grass. And for the first time in days, I let the silence fill me instead of fight me. She had cheated, lied, rewritten the truth right in front of me. But the real damage wasn't just betrayal. It was the slow, painful realization that I had been living with a stranger who wore my wife's skin. Someone who smiled at me while plotting 100 tiny exits. Someone who said, I love you, like it was a reflex, not a vow. I stayed at that lake for hours. Thought about my parents. About how my mom had once told me, love doesn't walk out. It wears you down first. I never understood what she meant until now. When I got back to the hotel that night, I found another text from Farron. You said not today. Does that mean there's still a chance? She still didn't get it. She still thought this was a pause, not an ending. I ignored it. The next day, I received an email from her attorney. A surprise. She had requested a preliminary meeting to discuss division of property, mostly the house. She wanted it. Claimed she had more emotional investment in it. I nearly laughed. Emotional investment? In the home where she planned lies and deleted call histories and kissed men who weren't her husband? Still, I didn't argue. I didn't fight for the house. I told the lawyer, let her have it. I just want my books, my desk, and the wedding album. The lawyer paused. The wedding album? Yeah, I said. I want to remember what she looked like before everything curdled. I didn't mean it to sound cold, but it came out that way. And maybe that's okay. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much time I spent trying not to sound bitter, not to appear broken, not to make her feel worse. But why? Why should I carry the weight of making her comfortable with the consequences of her actions? Later that evening, I got a call I didn't expect, Elise again. She sounded nervous, like she was walking while whispering. I think you should know something, she said. I sat down on the edge of the hotel bed. What now? She's telling people you were emotionally distant. That you shut her out. That's why she did what she did. My chest tightened again, not out of surprise, but out of deep, exhausted disappointment. She's saying I broke us? She's spinning it, Elise confirmed, trying to soften her own image. She's already hinted at it to her sister, and I heard she told Kat that you withheld intimacy for months. I swallowed hard. That wasn't just a lie, it was a hit below the belt. I had anxiety. I struggled with self-worth. And still, I reached for her, tried to connect, tried to ask for closeness. She was the one who pulled away. She was the one who turned cold. That night, I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Us. It was full of photos, videos, voice notes, memories of a marriage now hollowed out. I selected everything and moved it to a flash drive. Then I wiped the folder clean. She could have the house. She could tell whatever story helped her sleep at night. But I wasn't going to carry our story anymore like it was a weight chained to my spine. I'd rather let it go, even if it left a scar. And as I zipped up my bag to check out of the hotel for good, I said something out loud to no one but myself. I loved her, but I don't owe her my ruin. 3 weeks after I walked out of our marriage, I signed the papers. No grand confrontation. No courtroom drama. Just a pen, a quiet office, and a final signature that closed a chapter one once thought would last forever. Farron didn't show up in person. She had her lawyer handle everything. That, somehow, made it easier. It confirmed what I already knew. The woman I loved was gone long before she packed her suitcase. But here's the twist. The world didn't end. It cracked, sure. It burned a little. But it didn't fall apart. I moved into a small apartment a few blocks from the lake. The walls are thin and the heater rattles when it kicks on, but it's mine. Every inch of it is honest. There are no hidden texts, no disappearing acts, no fake goodbyes. Just space and peace. I started therapy. At first, it was just to stop the nightly spirals, the endless questions about what I missed, how I failed, why I wasn't enough. But now, it's become a place where I remember who I was before her. Before I let someone else define my worth. I've started drawing again, something I hadn't done in years. Turns out, pain has a way of making art out of you, if you let it. One afternoon, I ran into Elise at a bookstore. She looked happier. Free, maybe. We talked for a while, standing between the fiction and poetry aisles, and for the first time, there was no awkwardness. No pity. Just mutual understanding. We laughed. Really laughed. And before she left, she said something I won't forget. You never deserved what she did. But you deserve everything that's coming next. It stuck with me. A few days ago, I sat by the lake again, the same one where I once tried to piece myself together in the dark. But this time, I brought a sketch pad. I drew the water, the trees, the sky, not for anyone, not to be perfect, but just to feel again. To claim the quiet as something mine, not something stolen by pain. And here's what I realized. Heartbreak doesn't just end something. It frees something too. I thought I was weak. I thought I was a fool. But really? I was loyal. I was kind. I was there. I just gave it to the wrong person. Now, I'm giving it to myself. So if you're watching this, and you've been left, lied to, or broken down, know this. You are not what someone did to you. You are what you do next. And me? I'm finally living again. Thanks for being here. This has been my story, and I shared it because I know I'm not the only one. You're watching Reddit Confessions, and if you've made it this far, I'd love to know, what's a moment in history where someone reclaimed their power after losing everything? Drop it in the comments. Let's remind each other how resilience really looks. Until next time, stay honest, stay strong, and remember, healing is not weakness. It's rebellion.